If you don't stay down and you never quit, come on over here and sit on the far end of the bench.
Oh, man, if there's one good thing I could take away from this weekend is that September is over, October is here, and I can leave all of the losing in fantasy football and the losing in the pick'ems and the losing that my team has done on the field. All of those expectations that I had for the Bengals gone in an instant. Pretty much since you guys went up 7-3 in that game, I'll say is when all of my hopes for that team went absolutely out the window. We got plenty of that to talk about. Nico and I were both in attendance Monday night. Episode 250 of the Far Under the Bench podcast. We are set in we're about to have the sports equinox because hockey, I believe, regular season starts very soon. Basketball preseason is going to get underway after media day. Playoff baseball is here. NFL football, college football. We're almost at the point where Maction is a thing again. Nico, there's no better time. And I'm going to be joining the 28 club in less than 2 weeks as people are listening to this. So that is
absolutely. It's a great time of the year. We also, you didn't even forget, we have Paul Tan fighting this weekend too. Even so, you throw in a UFC great card we have on Saturday, and WWE John Cena's last couple of months of his retirement tour too. So we have I'm sorry if for those that are movie lovers and sports fans, movie season is going to have to wait because this is the best time of the year. We have everything going on, and frankly, not enough TVs to watch it all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm taking a little bit of time away this Sunday because I've been spending a lot of time with football. We're going to go see Smashing Machine. But other than that, it's all sports. It's all the time. I got football practice a little bit after this, so we're getting this recorded a little bit early and getting set for another huge weekend. But let's talk about a little bit of what we have. We'll have some predictions to kick things off. So if you're joining us early, it's a good thing that you're doing so. Nico and I both went through the playoff brackets, so just to keep everybody up to date what the first round matchups are right now, we're in the middle of the wild card series, which has moved to a 3-game series instead of the 1-game playoff. The Reds and Dodgers and the Padres and Cubs in the NL, and then we have the Tigers and Guardians and the Red Sox and Yankees, which I'm sure. I heard a little bit about how I think the Guardians and the AL series have already been played. We're recording this in the middle of the NL series. I guess I'll let you pick. Do you want to start AL or NL? And let's focus just on this wild card round and what we're kind of thinking about. I'll put our graphics up on the screen so people can see if
by the time most people are listening to this, every series could be finished. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time because, like I said, our predictions could end very quickly, is all I'll say. We know as we're recording this, one game is moving on to the third game, and the other one is in the bottom of the ninth. So we're very close on that one. And the other two hasn't even played their game 2 yet. So could be both ended. Could be very, very short. Could be very quick. I watched a little bit of the games yesterday. Like I said, there's not much to watch on a Tuesday night. I'm not a Dancing with the Stars fan. I did watch some of the WNBA semifinals game between the Fever and the Aces, so I had that on while I was watching baseball. And that was a great game. But based upon the first game, I think there are 2 evenly matched series and 2 that should go very, very one way. I think the Dodgers are a far superior team than the Reds. The Reds are the congratulations. Enjoy I hope you have extra 5 days without vacation. Congratulations. And I think, frankly, the Yankees, with how much they choke recently and placing the Red Sox, I think they are massively outmatched. And I frankly think that they just continue to show why they are not playoff baseball already. And they are a great regular season team. And Judge is a great regular season player, but he's not a postseason player. The other 2, Tigers, Guardians, the first 2 games have been incredible, back and forth. Cubs and Padres. Obviously, I'm wearing my Padres hat. It's been about 50-50 down the line. Cubs were able to come back, storm in game 1, and Padres have the lead in game 2 now. So I think those are probably 2 evenly matched. The Yankees, Red Sox, Reds, Dodgers. I just don't. The Reds are happy to be there.
That's pretty much the consensus of everybody. They were the last team to make it into the playoffs in the NL side. They have some superstars, and if you make the playoffs, you have a shot at something. But baseball is one of those sports where it's very tough that you don't get the lower seed or the lower level teams to upset a lot. So the Reds did a good job of making the playoffs. Hopefully they can now turn this into something moving forward. But I think everybody, including Reds Nation, probably assumed that one was going to go that way.
Reds Nation is hoping for a win and not to get swept 2-0 and try to get at least close to third
It's
game.
been rough in Cincinnati recently. So, yeah, getting one playoff baseball win might salt away a little bit of the wound that has been the Bengals season up until this point. We're pretty even on our wild card series, so I'll let you finish out and talk about the rest.
Yeah, I took Red Sox, obviously. I took Guardians over the Tigers. I think Guardians at home, I think that gives them the slight edge. They're a team that was red hot at the end of the season. And frankly, were one of the worst teams in baseball up until the midway point of the season. And the Tigers were a team that was in first place that kind of backed their way into the postseason, unlike what the Mets were trying to do, but couldn't do. So I have the Guardians in that one, winning that first one. On the other side, obviously, I have the Dodgers. I took the Padres. I think the Cubs are a good team, but I do think the Padres, with their midseason acquisitions of Mason Miller out of the bullpen, who was shut down today, and then obviously O'Hearn from Baltimore has been a big power bat out of the outfield for them, helpful too. The Padres kind of are this team that are very, very good, and that just struggle to flourish at the hot moments. Machado is falling apart at hot moments. Tatis falls apart. But now that you have the full lineup 1 through 9 and a bullpen and a starting group that can put it all together, you should be able to win the series. The Cubs just frankly are a good young team. Pre-Crow Armstrong is a great player. Obviously Dansby Swanson, who won the World Series with the Padres, the Braves a few years ago, has been very, very good. They have some great pitching as well. It's a very, very evenly matched series. I just went the Padres route because I feel like they have the more talented team.
No, I think the wild card series, other than the Reds, it could go either way. I like the way that Skubal pitches, so I'd love to see Tarek Skubal continue in Detroit. But Cleveland is in this position, and Cleveland has been in World Series. I kind of went with a little bit more of a throwback theme to 2016. So I'll throw mine up here on the screen. My wild card predictions are as follows. If you are following along on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed, like the video, and check out all of the short videos that we've been putting out. A lot of new content that we're putting in through our streams. I have the Tigers moving forward over the Guardians. Even sitting here as a guy who has been once a Yankees fan, that was my team that I claimed in high school when the Rockies weren't good, which they still aren't good, but I still claim the Yankees a little bit because the Bronx and the Italian ties. What I have noticed with them is all of their bats can't play anywhere other than DH. And you only get one of those in the lineup. Aaron Judge can't throw anybody out from the start of the grass, let alone from where you're catching a fly ball. Any of those is free bases if you got guys in scoring position. If you got guys on third, that's a free RBI. Just hit it to right field. And by the way, right field at Yankee Stadium, not the hardest thing to hit it out towards. So the Yankees are, the window's totally closed. Like, congratulations that they made the playoffs again. But the window of these superstars, the guys that they brought in, I know Soto decided to go there. They're so much older. It's crazy how old. Like, Aaron Judge is a 10-year vet, and he's about ready to start hitting that.
He's mid-30s. He's mid-30s. They added Ryan McMahon, who's late 20s, early 30s. They have Giancarlo, who's older than Judge. They have Goldschmidt, who's obviously mid-30s as well. They got older than last year. Obviously, Rizzo was older, but I feel like they just did not. They went all in on pitching and all in on veterans, and they forgot. Okay, we need to play defense. Oh, and we also need to have a pitching unit that can consistently get outs, and they don't have that right now.
And it's 162 games that you have to play, and these guys are worn out. These guys are tired. The Yankees, the way that they manage the age of their lineup, they have no youth, no freshness left in their legs. I think the Red Sox, whether it goes 3, I think that the Red Sox just have the ability and the legs to go a little bit farther than what the Yankees do. On the NL side, the Dodgers are what the Dodgers are. The fact that they get to start off with Shohei Ohtani in their lineup and not even have to use him as a pitcher at certain points throughout this series, they're going to be set up to go at the Phillies in the NLDS, in my opinion. I think the Cubs, I'm going for the story. I'd love to see a little bit of that 2016 Magic return, because 2016 was an awesome time. Freshman year of college, away from my parents for the first time, going on college road trips to play games all over the RMAC. it was a great time, and I have a little bit of nostalgia left in my heart. So I want to see the Cubs beat the Padres. I know that the Padres are very good, much more talented, a little bit more experience, especially in these situations. I'm picking a little bit with my heart, and we both talked about this before we started recording. This is going in very blind. This is going in very cold. I've pretty much watched the only baseball so far when I'm getting my haircut at Sport Clips, and maybe a little bit of the first couple of games in the wild card. I'll throw yours back up on the screen if you want to go through the rest of your bracket and finish up with your World Series champion.
Yeah, I'll start in the NL. I have Brewers Padres in the next round. I put Padres there. Brewers are the fun team that just dominated the regular season, but for whatever reason they can't figure it out during the postseason. They consistently just falter in the postseason. I would love to see the Brewers make a little bit of a run, but I don't know. I just feel like they're not built for postseason success. Obviously, I want to be proved wrong because I love seeing new teams in there. But the Padres have never won a World Series either. So, and the Brewers actually have. So I will go. I'll go Padres in that one. Dodgers, Phillies. Phillies, cute story. Dodgers the best team in baseball, most talented team in baseball. And then I have Dodgers, Padres, battle of the NL West teams in the championship series. I took the Padres giving the edge here. I think this is a matchup that we've seen so many time and time again in the postseason, and the Dodgers have had the upper hand outside of 2 years ago. And I think that the Padres are finally able to get over the hump and get past the Dodgers and get to the World Series.
That's it's the closest thing that we've had to a Red Sox and Yankees ALCS would be that Padres and Dodgers, because those teams truly don't like each other, and those fan bases don't like each other either. So
if I were to say one, I would say the the Giants Dodgers rivalry is a little bit more heated than those two, but they don't like each other at all.
It's just not as relevant as it was back when the Giants were winning a World Series every 2 years, but now the Padres have kind of taken it. It's always the Dodgers. It always comes back to the Dodgers because they just have the biggest checkbook and have the most amount of money to ever put towards anything. So Dodgers coming out of the NLCS to play. I'll let you go through your AL
I have the Padres coming out of the NLCS. Sorry, I don't have the Dodgers. I have the Padres.
Yeah.
Being the Dodgers. And then I have Mariners, Guardians. I took the Mariners. I like the big dumper. I don't know why. I like the big dumper, and I like Julio Rodriguez, who's the speedy outfielder that can hit for power for them. So I'll take the Mariners over the Guardians. And I took the Red Sox beating up their – I don't want to call it little brother because there's not really a little brother in baseball.
Little cousin,
and the Red Sox moving past the Blue Jays in round one. I think the two teams that are going to struggle with in terms of having this time off, I think it's going to be the Blue Jays. Three teams. I'll go Blue Jays, Mariners, and I think Brewers are the teams that could use this. Or that could be hurt by what these first couple of days off of the postseason, letting the wild card games happen. I think that the Brewers fall apart, and I think the Blue Jays are the two teams that are fall apart and don't get and have the bye hurt them. And so the Red Sox stay hot, and the Mariners stay hot, and then I have the Mariners beating the Red Sox, and I would love to see a Mariners Padres World Series, which would be between two teams that have never won a World Series. So there was another reason why I did that. So
and ESPN would totally just skip over. ESPN would turn into the lacrosse coverage that they had towards the championship of the PLL if it's those two teams. But I think that baseball, it's beautiful that way because you have so many of these. You only have a handful of these teams with the money, like the Yankees and the Dodgers. You have a lot more teams that are struggling, and this is the one shot. And I think that this is a really good shot for the Mariners. I think that this is a good shot for the Padres. Obviously didn't have them moving on past the wild card series, so my bracket looks totally different moving here on out. I have the Mariners also playing in the World Series after handling the Tigers in the ALDS, and the Red Sox after they beat the Blue Jays. I agree with you with everything you said with the Blue Jays. They've never been in this situation recently. They have no experience to really fall back on. It's long since the days of the Bautista bat flip in the postseason. It's not going to be happening anytime soon. I think that the Red Sox are hot enough. They have the wild card series to play into that momentum. I think that they take care of the Blue Jays. They get stopped by the big dumper in Cal Raleigh, and the Mariners represent the AL in the World Series. The Dodgers beat the Phillies because I agree with you that might end at the bank, and Philly fans are only going to be talking about the Eagles from here on out, because the Phillies won't have anything. The Sixers won't have anything. Villanova basketball, maybe, I guess. That might be the one thing in Philadelphia that people can talk about. The Dodgers will handle them. They will handle the Brewers in the NLCS, and I have the Dodgers in Clayton Kershaw's swan song, back-to-back World Series champions, because baseball is not about the players on the field. It's about being able to handle the money that you put into that roster. And the Dodgers have proved time in and time out they can handle this checkbook better than anybody, and this is the weakest AL that they're going to go up against. Whoever they play is worse than the other teams that they've played in the World Series situations they've been in recently, in my opinion, which I guess doesn't mean a ton when we're talking about baseball, but that's how I see things.
Well, I mean, who they beat last year? They beat the Yankees, who were not very good, and who obviously fell apart very quickly. Obviously, and all those teams that they played against the Astros when they made the World Series were much better than anything at the AL too. I don't hate that at all. If the Dodgers are able to put it together and get it hot at the right time, they're easily the best team in baseball. So I don't hate that at all.
Well, if you we're going to put these up on our Twitter channel, so make sure that you're following us on X. I guess I should call it the right name, at FEOTB Pod. Make sure that you vote in the poll that we put out. All of the teams that we have moving forward are not the wild card teams. So our wild card picks might be outdated by the time this episode comes out, but you guys can see whether or not we stick out. The rest of the postseason. Playoff baseball is much more exciting than anything else that goes on during the regular season besides the All-Star break. Speaking of things that are getting exciting, college football had a lot of heavyweight fights. I put pretty much all the headlines that we need to hit in the little banner. So again, if you're watching, make sure that you're subscribed. We are moving into, or we're now into the first month and a half of the season. 6 games in, conference schedules have started for everybody. We had the biggest and the second longest home winning streaks both come to an end on the same day. So let's start in the SEC. Alabama goes into Athens and takes out Georgia, but who Kirby Smart, whether it's Nick Saban or it's not Nick Saban, apparently can't play against that white A in all of the crimson. This is, I think, more of a tell. So I think Georgia has a couple of things to think about after this one. You have a quarterback that's dynamic like Gunnar Stockton, yet your offense is geared around being the most vanilla that you can possibly be. You had a 255-pound running back that's absolutely dominating in the game, and in the biggest situation, he's not on the field, and you give it to a 185-pound kid that is a walk-on redshirt senior that, yes, he's done a lot for the program, but maybe don't trust him in that big situation. Try and keep your home streak intact, and you don't put the ball in what I think is probably, with the way things have played out, Gunnar Stockton might be the most consistent, big-time clutch playmaker that's left in college football this season. The plays that he's made, the throws that he's made to win these games going in that Tennessee win, I think that's still a huge win. This doesn't derail Georgia's season, but what was your takeaway from this heavyweight fight that we saw out in Athens in the Deep South?
I mean, look, it's a big time win that Kalen DeBoer needed. Obviously, Alabama needed it. We said it a couple weeks back that Alabama needed to not lose 2 more games, or else they would be on the outside looking in for the playoff. But now this is the type of win that even if you don't squeeze into the SEC championship game, and you get a big win this weekend against Vanderbilt, you could be a team that could be looking at for a bye even, and be in that situation where you're right back to where you want to be. Obviously, Florida State, it's crazy to me that they still lost them, because Florida State obviously lost last weekend as well. So that was a bit of a shocker. And yeah, I mean, look, Georgia just seems like they're in that Clemson mode, from a couple years ago, where they're still good players, but they're past their peak and past where the juice of their team was. And like I said, Alabama caught them on a good day. So
I also think it's a little bit interesting too. I made the joke that Kirby Smart can't coach against Alabama, but it's not necessarily a joke anymore. We have a lot of footage to back it up. He is a totally different demeanor on the sidelines.
He's also won national championships over Alabama, so it goes both ways. But yes, more recently he's not been great.
Against what we've seen, we've all said Kalen DeBoer's Alabama is not what Nick Saban's Alabama is. Even against this Alabama team, he's now 0-2 going up against Kalen DeBoer, coach Crimson Tide teams, and he was not the same fiery, passionate coach that's getting after people on the sidelines when they make mistakes. He was a lot more calm, a lot more docile. Maybe he's starting to adjust to the schedule change. I think that's something that we have to put into consideration. Coaches know that, obviously with the transfer rules being what they are, you don't want to alienate somebody and force them into the transfer portal, but this doesn't affect how they could still win out the rest of their games. If Bama slips up one more time, they find themselves back in the SEC championship game. If they don't, then it's 2 one-loss teams, because that means Georgia's beating everybody and Bama's beating everybody else in the SEC, and those would be the 2 best teams left in your conference. Both teams are still very much alive for what they want to do in the postseason. It's kind of the similar conversation what we had at the end of that Ohio State-Michigan game last season. Yeah, it's going to be bitter and it's going to taste like crap, because now you have 55 home games in a row that you won, and now you have to start over at a new streak. But everything that we want is still in front of you. So just continue to stay on your path. Don't slip up again. You have the Georgia game that will be big, even though Georgia's a little bit down. Vanderbilt this weekend in Tennessee. Like, I feel like the entire city of Tuscaloosa is going to be in the stands. Hopefully Vanderbilt has some season ticket holders, because that will be a home game for Alabama, even if it's on Nashville's campus. I love what Diego Pavia has been doing, but now we have a motivated
that's in Tuscaloosa, by the way. The game's in Tuscaloosa because Vanderbilt beat Alabama and Vanderbilt.
So it's going to be an even bigger situation.
If you would have told me 5 years ago that College Game Day would be going to Vanderbilt versus Alabama game, I'd be like, "Are you going to did they create a game day for baseball like in the spring? Like Vanderbilt's horrible at football." And then obviously what Pavia has done for that team, and school has been great. And obviously getting, like you said, the big win last year at home was huge. Getting a bigger win on the road at Alabama is a much, much tougher, tall task. And like I said, Alabama, like, they could see it as a trap game, or they could see it as a we need to take care of business again this week and continue the hot streak that they've been on after what they just did to Georgia.
And that's a top 20 matchup now. Vanderbilt was ranked 18 going into last week. They'll be ranked even higher. That is definitely where the college football universe is going to be revolving around. But that was a big upset not necessarily. It was an upset victory. Road victory happened. I guess I put it in this way: how good is Ohio State? Because that was I know that the scoreboard doesn't necessarily look like they blew them out like they did Oregon in the Rose Bowl. They had total control of that game pretty much from the start. Their defense did whatever they wanted to do against Damon Williams, who is looked at as this really dynamic passer, and that's a good Washington team. I know that they don't have a ranking next to their name, but they were 3-0 coming into this matchup, and they're set up like similar to what we said with Alabama, Georgia. It's going to be tougher for them because they can't lose any more games and probably not going to be in the conference championship. But if you continue to play and depending on how your Big Ten schedule shakes out, you beat a Michigan, you beat a Penn State, you beat an Indiana. I don't know if any of those teams fall on their schedule moving forward, but there is still something there left for Washington. Just how good is Ohio State, though? What do you feel about the Buckeyes?
Ohio State has I think they have the best skill position player offensively and the best skill position player defensively in the country, and Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, we saw what Caleb Downs did that first week against Texas. He continues to do it week in, week out. Shows why he's one of the most imposing safeties college football has ever seen. And obviously, Jeremiah Smith on the other end, a guy that was in the shadow of Ibuka, in the shadow of Njigba, and the understudy to all of them. And now he gets the reins to the offense and is taking over as well. So Ohio State, like I said, they have playmakers all over the board. Like I said, they need to continue putting good quality wins together. I don't, like I said, Washington, good for them. They did decently, but they there's more quality wins ahead that they need to be tested for. So, like I said, I think they have the best skill position players in college football. They just need to continue to put it together. I think Julian Sayin has played well. Has played well thus far, but has not been the 5-star quarterback he came into Ohio State as. So he could be doing better.
I feel like there's a little bit that he can get to where he's as good as what Will Howard was at the end of last season, and then we saw what he's able to do with this receiver room, because Cardell Tate, also another receiver that isn't talked about as much because of Smith, but that's another guy that can score at will and will beat 98% of the cornerbacks and DBs that he's going to be playing against. Very interested to see what the Buckeyes do in that game against Michigan at the end, because, it's not going to affect them postseason wise, but that's big for them. And I think that this group, if there's a group in Ohio State that's going to break whatever curse Michigan has right now, this is a good enough team to do it. They just need a little bit more of a pass rush. Their front seven needs to catch up to their secondary. Normally in college football, we see it the other way because the front seven is so much easier to replenish. But you're right. Caleb Downs is, if it wasn't an offensive position, could be in conversations for the Heisman just because he's that good. He shuts down everything. Oregon gets the overtime victory in Happy Valley. Penn State can maybe, obviously it's not a narrative anymore. It's just facts. They can't win these big games. It's been 2 times out of, I think, the last 17 chances that they've been able to get a victory against the top 10 ranked opponent. This one was in the whiteout. It was at night, everything going their way, and their offense didn't show up until the fourth quarter. Kudos to them, I guess, because normally they don't get this game into overtime. So they did show a little bit more than what they have in the past, but still, they're not playing to Aller's strengths. James Franklin looks like he's scared in these big moments. And Dan Lanning, I put it in kind of in jest, but this is a huge victory, just like how last season against Ohio State, hosting your first Big Ten real season game. Now you get your first real Big Ten road test win. That was huge for Oregon, and I think Oregon kind of silenced a lot of things, and Penn State maybe opened up a lot more conversations surrounding what's going on with their program.
Dan Lanning has proved why he thrives under these moments, and James Franklin proves why he doesn't, and he falters and falls to the wayside in these big moments. Oregon, like I said, Dante Moore has continued to show me that he's one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the country right now. He does so many great things with his feet and his arm that, frankly, is not many quarterbacks across college football do as good as he does. With that dual threat. So he's been incredible for them. You look at what Penn State continues to do. Like I said, they still have a chance to win the Big Ten. They still have a chance to host a first round bye and do all that. But it's creep. It's not, like I say, it's not just a theory. It's a fact now that Penn State can't win big games, and now it's going to take a big win against Ohio State. It's going to take a big win against another Big Ten.
Indiana.
I don't even call that a big win.
But that's their next. That would be a top 10. That would be a top 10 win right now, and they haven't had any of those outside of the 2.
It's a big win in terms of in terms of standings and all that. I would not put Indiana in terms of how much hype goes into the game, how much fanfare, how much hatred, how much little brother syndrome goes into the game, as opposed to playing in Michigan or Ohio State. It's a different story. I
think that there's pressure the opposite way in that situation, because if Indiana walks in with Kirk Cignetti and does what they did, any semblance of what they did to Illinois against Penn State, which I'm not saying they can, but let's just say that happens. Penn State has all of the pressure in that situation. Indiana really doesn't have much of any, because Indiana would still only have 1 loss at that point because they play Ohio State, I think, after that in the schedule. Penn State has all of the pressure in that game. Whether you think that Indiana is big brother or not in that conference, if they lose to Kurt Cignetti and what this Hoosiers team is right now, that's Penn State's season right there.
It is, but at the same time, we're talking about big wins. We said it. They played Boise State. They played SMU. And look, as good as Cignetti has done in Indiana, as good as Indiana football is right now, they are in the same conversation of football, and probably worse than what SMU and Boise State has been in their history. Not recently, in their history. And that's not sliding Indiana. Frankly, to have them even in that conversation up until the last couple of years was an asinine take. So that's why I don't think it's a big game to them. But like you said, it should be, because your season's on the line. And not just the season, it's the Big Ten championship on the line. So in terms of big game, I wouldn't call it a big game that James Franklin would falter. I think that's the type of game that James Franklin would win, actually, because it's not as much fanfare. It's not as much story and history between the two programs.
I'll put another one on that same list. They do play USC again. USC will go to Happy Valley, and the Trojans, they had a tough loss at the very end. They battled back against Illinois. Illinois gets back on the right track after taking that massive loss against Indiana. But that would be another team, like Penn State's probably not going to look at that very tough, but that was a very close game last year when you had Tyler Warren and being able to do all of these things offensively. You had the resiliency of being on the road. If you lose to a USC or an Indiana that you might be overlooking because of these other schools that you have always struggled with in your conference, James Franklin doesn't do well in pressure situations. They should win those games, but those are games that have been close recently, and I could see going, in the negative way, and that could totally derail everything. And now you wasted a season of Drew Rowler. I don't think that they're close to firing Franklin. Honestly, we had another coach go. Arkansas got rid of their head coach most recently. They got their asses handed to them by Notre Dame. I don't think that James Franklin's necessarily on the hot seat, because how are you going to get somebody that's going to continue even what James Franklin's been able to do at this program? But there's serious questions like, how do you do this? How do you play offense? Right now, you're Iowa of the further northeast in the Big Ten, because your offense is stagnant behind a defense that just keeps you in every single game that you play.
It takes a good class. It takes special talent, and frankly, we thought they had it last year. Obviously, Warren's an all-world tight end who's been very good in the NFL, and Abdul Carter, who is an all-world defensive talent as well, off the edge for them. It takes all-world defensive talent to be able to get over the hump. Like we said, look at the different coaches in the past that we could say the exact same thing over with, right? Ed Orgeron at LSU. Could not win the big one against Alabama. Could not beat Georgia. Could not knock down these big-time SEC schools. What happens? He gets an all-time recruiting class with NFL talent all over the board, and look what happens. They win a national championship. Clemson, same thing. They could not get over the hump of Florida State. They could not get over the hump of Miami. All of a sudden, Dabo Swinney brings in Trevor Lawrence, brings in Deshaun Watson, brings in all this great talent that frankly that it just out-talents them. And this is why, unfortunately, Penn State is in a situation where it's not a desirable school. And when you add the teams like USC, you add the teams like Oregon into the Big Ten, you're not going to get those West Coast recruits that want to play in the Big Ten, as opposed to with Oregon or with USC over there. And that's one thing that Penn State had to its advantage when they didn't have those schools on the West Coast. So they're having good talent brought in, but frankly, it's B-tier talent. Actually, not even B-tier. It's A-tier talent when the S-tier talent is going to Ohio State, going to Michigan, going to Oregon in the same conference. So,
yeah, to give a little bit of a shout out to our Rise of the Roadrunners college football series, it's a 4-star recruit, but there's no gem. You're not getting a gem that's going to go all the way from California out to Happy Valley, because it's a very small city on the total opposite side of the country. Looking a little bit ahead to what we have upcoming this weekend, we've already mentioned it, but Vanderbilt, Alabama, that's where College Game Day is going to be in Tuscaloosa. Bama is favored by 10.5 points. Vandy is a plus 340 underdog. So there's not a whole lot of credit given to Pavia and this squad. They're better than just Diego Pavia. I know that he's the face of it, and I think that that's good for this team to kind of be a little bit – they're still hidden under the radar even after all of those big wins that they had. They're 16th ranked in the country. They're 5-0. It's going to be on ABC. What is the reality? What is the real percentage that the Commodores pull this thing off and get their biggest win? Because, again, this is the biggest win in program history if they pull off this upset on the road against
Last year
Alabama.
was the biggest win in program history. Like beating them at home was the biggest win in program history. This doubles it because you go into Tuscaloosa. I don't think it happens. I think what Alabama showed this past week against Georgia, I don't think it happens. And for those that, and this is a fair comparison between the two, because I think both quarterbacks have a similar hype train and similar programs at the time, maybe a little bit different, but A&M was a little bit better. Johnny Manziel and Diego Pavia are very, very similar. Obviously, like I said last week, might have been 2 weeks ago, where Johnny Manziel won in wherever this College Station or Texas A&M for them, beat Bama there, and then they went on the road and did that. Except that team had Mike Evans. Except that team had all-world talent around him. And this is no slight to Pavia, because I think he, frankly, could be as good a dual threat quarterback as Johnny Manziel. He doesn't have the talent around him to be able to put it together on the road, especially a team that just knocked off Georgia. So I'm not putting it at 0, but I'm also putting it at under 25%. Yeah. So that's where I see it.
It's always interesting because when I watched Vanderbilt this season, they don't run the option offense that a service academy does, but they run an offense with the same discipline and the same amount of trickery. They know like that their offense is predicated on if you've ever seen We Are Marshall. They run like a veer-style offense because they know they're not as big, they know they're not as strong, they know they're not as fast. They're taking care of angles, they're giving their quarterback options, and if their quarterback makes the right reads, 9 times out of 10, it's at least a 4-yard gain. And Nico, 4 times 4 is 16. And the last time I checked, you only need to go 10 yards to get a first down.
4 times 3 is 12. So
I get, and even so, even if you get stuffed on a couple plays, you always are at least somewhat close. They'd love to go for it on 4th down. Clark Lee is going to he's going to play into this whole thing. Like, that is, I think, a mental X factor, but it's a very outside chance. If it happens, it's amazing, and it'll be the coolest thing that we'll have to talk about.
It's the biggest story in college football, and frankly, we could start talking about Vanderbilt winning the ACC. But I need it to happen in Tuscaloosa, and then we'll have the conversation.
The Commodores in the SEC championship in Atlanta would be something that I never would have ever pictured myself saying when I started doing radio way back in college. Other big games that are coming up, and then I'll give you 2 sneaky ones that I think people should pay attention to. We have Miami, Florida State. Little bit of mustard taken off of it because Virginia was able to upset Florida State at home. So maybe this team isn't what we thought it was after their big win at home against Alabama. But it is one of the biggest rivalries in the state of Florida, the biggest rivalry, depending on who you ask. Miami is coming into it undefeated, ranked number 3. It is a road game, but again, they don't leave the state of Florida until November. So do the Hurricanes behind Carson Beck, are they able to find a way to get this thing done? Did Florida State show too many cracks in their armor where they may be smelling themselves a little bit because Castellanos wasn't looking like himself? How are you seeing this Florida State-Miami game shake out as the resident Canes guy on the podcast?
Throw everything you thought about this game out the window because it's a rivalry game. You could say, oh, Miami's is better, the home Florida thing, whatever. Who cares? It's a rivalry game between 2 teams that literally hate the living snot out of each other. So that means, to me, this game could go a million different ways. Doesn't matter. To me, Florida State overlooked Virginia, and that's why they lost this past weekend. And now they overlooked them, and they have the team that they're looking forward to, and that Castellanos was looking forward to. They try to hold back the playbook. They try to do the smart thing and just get out of Virginia with a win. Obviously, they fell apart, and that wasn't the way they wanted to go. But now they step in against a team, Miami, that frankly has outside of the win against Notre Dame, has had a pretty easy schedule because Florida isn't as good as it was. And you can go down the rest of the schedule. USF has been falling apart too. Like, it has not been as good as it once was. And this needs to continue to be a statement win for Miami. We talk about the ACC and how it's not the SEC, not the Big Ten. The ACC has to continue to have a 2 seed, have a 3 seed, have a 4 seed over a Big Ten loser or an SEC loser in that first round bye. You have to have a statement wins one after another, continue to put it together. And I think Miami will be able to do this here because I think they're in a better position. I think Castellanos is a good quarterback, and I think Florida State's doing much better than they were last year with Norvell. But I just think that Cristobal and Carson Beck are just going to put it on a show. Miami takes this one.
Yeah, the things that travel and the things that go well in a rivalry, great upfront play, and the offensive line for Miami is probably the most disciplined and one of the best in the country. The defensive line
it's a much better defense than it was last year too.
It is a very good defense now, and they understand. We'll talk about it because after this we're going to break down the Bengals game. But I hate teams that think, oh, we just got to keep it close. We're going to give up 35 points, but our offense will score 36. That's not this Miami Hurricanes team this year. And Carson Beck. I think that people underestimate how tough it was for him to come back from Tommy John surgery to play quarterback.
From not many people. On Haley Cavender, from falling apart. At Georgia,
yeah, I mean, you get put into dark places when you're dealing with injuries. But it's been all bad. But he's been able to come through on the other side, and he's not scoring 55 points every single game. But he is orchestrating this offense the way that it needs to be, and they're ranked number 3 in the country for a reason. It's a rivalry game, but Florida State seems to be, if we're going to talk about big brother, little brother in this rivalry, Florida State would be the little brother outside of like pockets. Even when they were good, even with Dion, everybody remember wide right? Okay, how about wide left? How about all the times Miami's had like 25 NFL dudes on their roster and absolutely gone in and blown the doors off of the Seminoles, even in Tallahassee? I think that Miami has every ability and right to win this game. I would pick the Canes if I was going in this one. Sneaky games that I think people should pay attention to if you have nothing else going on for you Saturday. Texas Tech, Houston. TCU just got beat Arizona State upset them, and now there's only one team, I believe, that's left undefeated in the Big 12. Actually, two teams because they're playing in this game. Houston and Texas Tech are your last two undefeated teams, and maybe BYU. So there's very few. The Big 12 is volatile, but if Texas Tech is going to be the team that everybody's claiming them to be after their huge win against Utah, they go into Houston and handle business, and we see Texas Tech go from 11th in the country to up into the top 10, maybe even top 8. I think if they go 5-0 and continue to dominate through their conference, but that's one I think people should be paying attention to. Another one that I have here, Mississippi State, Texas A&M. If you were not paying attention to Mississippi State last weekend, they took Tennessee to overtime. They almost got a win over the Vols. This is a program that's not necessarily like they're struggling. They're trying to figure out and find their footing. Texas A&M is ranked 6th in the country, coming in undefeated as the home team. That is a upset brewing if I've ever seen one. So if you're looking for juicy lines, if you're looking for teams to maybe take a flyer on, I would pay attention to those games because if you like Houston, if you like Mississippi State, you can get really good money for not much of a wager if you catch my drift.
Yeah, I mean, both those games I think are going to be very, very good. I would lean towards more of Texas Tech versus Houston being the tougher matchup, and I think Texas A&M might be able to squeeze it out versus Mississippi State. But yeah, both those games will be very, very good games.
All right, we get to finally get to your segment. You get to gloat a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about fantasy football, but what is there to talk about? You had 6 guys score 35 points, so
222 points scored for one fantasy roster. 4 of the top 5 fantasy football scores. Before we even got to Sunday Night Football, the game was over.
He could have played everybody in the league all at once and probably.
I could have stopped. I could have not played George Pickens and still won by 50.
I know, I'm aware, and I had guys that scored 32. That's the other thing. It's not like I wasn't close to 200. I had a really big fantasy week too.
You had a great weekend. We can count down to how many teams you would have beaten. You would have beaten half the league.
I believe that it would have been close. I'm still pissed that my power rankings doesn't move, even though that I'm showing way better than what my projections have been. But it was tough.
Week 4, it was 145-222. I won by 80 points, which actually made it closer because I was up by 100 points at one point. You would have beaten 1, 2. You actually only would have beaten 2 teams. Let's take it back. It was a high score.
Everybody was doing well. This was kind of the week that. Yeah. This is the month into the season. We kind of know who's going to be able to perform and who's not. And we also had a few people. He got added into my lineup this weekend, but Stephon Diggs seems like he's finding his niche and what he's going to be doing. But we're getting into I know that you've been waiting for this one, but that was
what is there to talk about? It's the worst team in football. Just came doors broken off.
I get that, but also your team just got back to 500. Like this. It could have been a catastrophic thing if it went the other way, but I think that you can say they took care of business. In person, it was bad. In person, you could see a lot of the mistakes that the Bengals were making, and you could see the lack of.
You're texting me 2 minutes before, or 1 minute and 8 seconds before halftime starts. They're like, "Oh, we're up at the concourse. You want to come say hi?" I'm like, "We're gonna drive down and score a touchdown as we do." And I was like, "I'm not leaving the halftime that early. I'd like to go see Bo Nix."
I was just letting you know where we were, Nico. I was
2-minute drive down the field.
I was facilitating a first experience at Empower Field, and shout out Carly. She says she had a great time. She was in her Broncos gear, so people were giving her high fives and everything as things were going on. No, I think the worst thing, the biggest thing that I can say about this game is that it's so inconsequential that everybody's just looking like. I didn't get shit talked once on the way out of the stadium. Nobody was saying anything. Nobody said good game. Nobody said bad game. Everybody was just worried about, oh, we got Philly coming up. Oh, yeah. And all the Bengals fans were quiet.
And like I said, I hate to use this term against you because you like to call my team the Donkeys, but the Bungles came out again. The Bungles, the bum team that stepped in, that usually comes in and is a bad football team consistently year after year, was in the building. You're like, you know what? We're a better football team. We should be able to dominate every side of the football, which we did every second. Outside of that first drive where you got 3 points, the only team that beat themselves was the Denver Broncos, and why it was only 28-3. But frankly, like I said, you played the worst team in football. And frankly, I know that you may be taking that as a slight to your team. It's not. This is the worst team in football without Joe Burrow. You want to know why? Because you're paying $700 million to 3 guys who are inconsequential to the result of a football game.
There's a lot of reasons why those guys don't have the production, and they're rightfully pissed off. This is one time where we'll sit there like you got a front row seat to it. Your seats are great to see what the interactions were on the sidelines. This is the worst coaching staff I've ever seen assembled at the NFL level, and I lived through Denver with Nathaniel Hackett. You don't coach. You don't sit there as a coaching staff in the NFL. They went through production meetings. Niko, I sat through this game. I rewatched it last night. I wanted to watch the TV copy. I don't know why I subjected myself to it.
First of all, I would have turned that game off at halftime. If I was not a fan of either team, I would be like, what else am I doing with my Monday night? Because I could care less of what happened between these two teams. So I'm happy at least you were able to sit through it twice.
No, I did because I charted out. I only made it through 3 quarters because after that, it really didn't matter. But they sat in production meetings and they said, well, when we had Burrow, we were planning on giving up this many points and just making enough plays to win the game. And now we had to like totally adjust our defense to stop them from scoring points. They literally sat there and said that in a production meeting. When everybody's having all this hoopla about Brady being in production meetings and everybody's, you don't get any information out of those. It's inconsequential. Nobody knows and nobody gives anything away in those. No, we gave everything away. We gave away the fact that this coaching staff is so incompetent that they were planning on giving up 40 to score 45 to win every freaking week. Again, that was the plan. Back-to-back seasons when it didn't work the first time.
And you want to go a step further. If it wasn't even just their plan. It was the general manager's plan. When you signed T. Higgins to this fat contract for him to only have 3 catches in the first drive and not do anything the rest of the game, you signed Trey Hendrickson in the offseason to do what? Did you hear 91's name at all? Because Garrett Bowles ate his lunch, dinner, and breakfast.
He hogtied him quite a few times, but it wasn't getting called.
Well, it happens every single day. Every weekend, every play there's a hold on the offensive line in the NFL. True or false? Ask your dad.
Honestly, like the referees were terrible, but they weren't even calling like the penalties that were there. It was
Bengals fans that are arguing penalties this, penalties that. We had one guy get 5 penalties alone. Luke Wattenberger, the center, had 5 penalties between hands to the face. It was as bad of a game front to start, reffing wise, as it was as bad as what the Bengals were putting out in the field.
No, so, if you let me get through, like I'm not sitting there like complaining. I'm not sitting there blaming anything. We lost the fucking game. There's nothing else that I could say about that. I charted out 15 series, and the Bengals got their asses whooped every single way that you looked at it. I'm not sitting here making any excuses, but I am sitting here saying the fact that we're going to be behind a regime. Like, if you're a Bengals fan and you continually, like, don't put faith in this team. Don't put faith in this roster. Don't put faith in this management, because it's the same thing every single year. And it's the Rocky cycle. We are seeing the Rocky cycle play out in the NFL, and I thought that the NFL was a league that was trying to make sure this didn't happen. It's ridiculous. You waste so much money on payroll to then, when one player goes out, like Jake Browning, my ass. I apologize for pushing the narrative. He was pretty decent. Like, he was a 500 quarterback up until this season when he played the Vikings and the Broncos, but he's ass. He doesn't read a defense anyway. Like, he had 3 nice balls to T. Higgins on that first series. I was texting you because it was a continuation of the game from last December where Moss just couldn't cover T.
Exactly. But then Riley Moss continued to shut down T. Higgins the rest of the game after that first series. Look,
I don't think that he didn't really look for him. He wasn't reading the defense. Like,
he couldn't hit the receiver in stride multiple times. Look, I will also give Browning a little bit of kudos. He just played 2 of the top 5 defenses in football.
A professional starting caliber quarterback like he claims himself to be, though, can at least still be serviceable and not give up. Yeah, he scored. He scored 13 points in 80 minutes. He scored 13 points in 80 minutes of play because he got pulled in the 4th quarter of the Vikings game.
The Vikings, the Broncos are 2 of the best defenses in football. So frankly, with what I saw from this defense, thank God you gave this team some life, because, like I said, I saw what I saw from Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito. It made Orlando Brown and Mims turn around faster and look at each other like, wow, you're turned down around already? It made Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware look like they get off slow off the ball.
2 rookie guards against your defensive line. That was the
Oh,
dumbest
I was
decision we
looking
could
at
have
the
made.
lineman on the sideline. It's not getting much better. You want to throw in Cody Ford or Dalton Reisner, who's on his third team, TikTok boy? Like it's crazy. What investing in 2 guys? I'll say this again: investing in 2 guys that don't touch the ball every play and don't play a factor into a play every single time. What it does to your offense? It's 3 guys getting paid $700 million to do nothing for the result of the football game. Nothing. They don't have any factor into the game when Joe Burrow is not in the game. That's a fact. Because unless you, like I said, this is why, frankly, we took way too much time on this Broncos team because they played horrible. They're going to be horrible all season, and they should be as bad as they need to be so they can go get the number 1 offensive lineman in the draft or go get the number 1 defensive player in the draft and maybe go get Caleb Downs or maybe go get that offensive guard from Ohio State. Go get somebody to make Joe Burrow's life easier because that's the best thing that would be for this.
If you want to get off the Bengals side of things, tell me why the fuck the Broncos didn't score 50.
I'll tell you why, because we ran for 180 yards. We said,
if this is the worst team, if this is the worst team in the NFL, you score 50 points. You know why? They're undisciplined. They still don't call the plays that are there. They still have cases of the dropsies throughout the games. Like, this is not a perfect performance.
Oh, yeah, this offense, we said it. You made this offense look as bad as it is. This isn't Josh Allen at quarterback. This isn't Amon-Ra St. Brown on the outside like you're going to see in Detroit. This is Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, half of Evan Ingram, a rookie running back, J.K. Dobbins, and a second-year quarterback that you just put up 28 points. The Broncos, you could say the Broncos didn't look good. I, frankly, was actually excited for what I saw.
I'm not telling you not to be.
A team that put up 180 rushing yards.
I'm not telling you not to be.
And I sat there being like, damn, we have an identity finally. Oh, J.K. Dobbins, 100-yard rusher. First time in 3 years we've had that, by the way. 100 yards rushing. Okay. R.J. Harvey got some great looks out of the backfield. Okay. We're actually seeing Troutman catch the football. Is actually consistent doing that. Marvin Mims, who wasn't supposed to play that game, had some great plays. Patrick Bryant didn't get any touches, had a seal block. That was the most beautiful seal block I've ever seen out of a receiver. And that's exactly what you brought him in for. So this is an offense that needed confidence boost. And offense, like I said, we're not Josh Allen. We don't have Lamar Jackson. We have Bo Nix. And what did I tell you before? This is an offense that is mediocre at best. Mediocre at best. And in terms of offensive output, I will lick my chops at 28-3 win every single day over at 35 or 42-3 win. When I see an offense run for as much as it did consistently down your throat. Because like you said, I can tell you what the play call is. Okay, well, what was the old football saying we had when we were kids? We're coming right at you to try and stop it.
I was talking about the
Hendrickson, where are you in the running?
I was talking about the Bengals. I was reading the Bengals like a book. No, here's the thing. You're getting defensive about me saying that your team didn't look as good as people are trying to give it credit for. I'm just going to sit here. I'm not saying that I'm above or below wherever my expectations were. You handled business the way that you needed to handle business. Now go in and handle business against Philly.
It's a different story.
It is a different story. I'm not saying go out there and beat Philadelphia. I am saying go out and continue to put the good things that you saw together and take out the bad things. You still have to get your penalties under control. The Bengals had a terrible first half of penalties. The Broncos sucked dick at penalties.
And that's why we should see a new starting center in front of Bo Nix. Because let's count up how many penalties there were for the Broncos. Because I know for a fact Wattenberg had 5. So I would assume it was like 9 or 10 penalties.
They got close to double digits by the end of the game.
So it was 9 or 10. So one guy had half of those penalties. That's not a necessarily coaching decision. It's a coaching problem. It's a guy problem. So that's where my thing is with the offensive line and where the penalties are coming from. Because like I said, it's one thing if you're a secondary, you're a special teams, your offensive line, your defensive line, your corners, everybody is all game penalties. When one guy has 5 penalties, more penalties than half the teams that played on Sunday in one game, that's one dude. That's not a collection of people. That's a badly needed center change. I don't even know who we have. Maybe Forsyth. I don't even know if he's on the roster anymore. Honestly, he's not much better. He's not much better either. We have a center problem. That's very, very obvious. But it has to be something different because one guy getting 5 penalties alone is not it.
No, and the good things too, like Hufanga able to discipline himself and not body slam people and DDT people off the top rope. You can't do that in the NFL without drawing a penalty. But I will say, I noticed it a little bit when I was sitting there, but when I watched the TV copy, he brings it's similar to that TJ Ward factor where TJ Ward wasn't always making every single play, but he made everybody in that secondary hit. That was the requisite of being in the no-fly zone is you needed to make contact when you had an ability to hit in the open field. And that's why the Bengals didn't get a lot of production out of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, because when they're playing for Jake Browning, Nico, they're playing for Jake Browning, so they're not willing to go over and make the hard plays. And Hufanga has gotten this defense to a point where they hit. Their defensive line was able to settle in against a terrible offensive line. The issues that I'm seeing, though, is you're playing against a much better team. Like the first series shouldn't have happened. The defense was a slow start. If you slow start against this Philadelphia offensive line,
the first series, let's go down the first series of plays because two of those are one-on-one balls of Riley Moss over the top of T. Higgins. T. Higgins over the top of it.
Offensive line is still giving him enough time to throw at that point of the game.
At that point, yeah. So you were able, like I said, your best offense you had the entire Sunday was one-on-one balls on the outside to your best.
Again, I'm not trying to defend my team against your team. I'm trying to sit here and say if you I am too. But if you do any of those things against Philadelphia, you're down 7-0 instead of 3-0. You're having to score touchdowns instead of just like if they needed to, they would have been able to kick field goals too. That's the only thing that I'm trying to say. I'm not.
And we're talking about the Bengals versus Broncos, not Broncos versus Eagles game yet. That's what I'm saying. That's what you need to do against those opponents. The problem is, like I said, there's so many weaknesses of this team. And I'll continue saying it, but what happened and what you do against horrible football teams is you try to get your weaknesses confidence. And you try to get your weaknesses plays where they have that feeling of, okay, we're actually good at football. Like you said, Jaquan McMillan had that big that big screenplay they blew up 3 yards in the backfield on that second drive for T. Higgins that blew the whole drive up, right? You have Patrick Surtain basically fathered Jamar Chase for the 8th time in his career. Look up the numbers. I saw the numbers. Jamar Chase has a total. He has lined up against him 60 times throughout college and the NFL. He has 8 catches for 30 yards. Those are real numbers. Real numbers. That's not no Joe Burrow, Jake Browning, don't matter. It's Patrick Surtain has fathered Jamar Chase. Okay, they have tried, and that is why Patrick Surtain was the defensive player of the year last year, and why he's continuing to be the anchor of this defense. What obviously going into Philly and going into the rest of the season is you need to get Riley Moss confidence. You need to give Jaquan McMillan confidence. You still have a first-round pick that has barely seen 40% of the snaps, which is still very annoying to me. He needs to try to get some run in there, and Jahdae Barron. The secondary is the backbone of this team. I've said it over and over again. Secondary and the pass rush are very, very good. You are getting Malcolm Roach back this weekend, so that's going to help your interior defensive line too. It's continuing to be watching Alex Singleton line up against a running back that's twice his size, or not even twice his size, half his size and twice his speed. It was a nightmare watching Alex Singleton try to guard Chase Brown. And frankly, luckily Jake Browning just tried to give the ball to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
He shut down the tight end threats that we had because we have Fant Gesicki.
38 years old. Fant was hurt. But wasn't nothing.
Even still, we have sample we have guys that have come in and made the Broncos linebackers because the linebackers have been a weakness in their defense for a long time. We've had tight ends play for the Cincinnati Bengals in Denver before and done better than that. I will also say too, this is the best use of the altitude and the home field advantage that I've seen a Broncos team have in a long time. It just if you just tell by the play calls, every single pass play for Bo Nix for the first 2.5 quarters was some sort of rollout. So even if you beat your offensive lineman clean, you're having to run 15 yards to chase the quarterback.
I hate more than anything. I'll be honest with you. I hate when he rolls out because, frankly, we've seen it. He is a far more accurate first player when he sets his feet. That touchdown to Cortland Sutton at the end of the half set his feet. That touchdown to R.J. Harvey set his feet.
It is a good rhythm.
He's a much better quarterback when he sets his feet. Rolling out, it's a nightmare fuel. And like I said, I think you said something correctly, but at the same time, positioning it the correct way. They use their altitude to their advantage by running the damn ball. Just
making them chase.
Exactly. Just keep going one after another. That's one thing J.K. Dobbins that we don't give him enough credit for. He is a very patient runner. He is not a downhill run you over. Patience. It's a little bit frustrating watching him run because you're like, can we get going here a little bit? Let's hit the hole a bit hard. But then you watch him. Okay, he's letting that develop. He sees the lineman and sees the blocking scheme so well. And that's why he's so effective as a runner because – like I said, he's able to get 4, get 6 yards, get 8 yards, a run because he sees things develop and doesn't just try to run headfirst into a wall. And like I said, like a lot of young running backs do nowadays. And that's one thing RJ Harvey can learn so well from him because, like I said, Harvey is not a guy that's going to be a Derrick Henry running people over. Right? So he's not going to be doing that at all. He needs to be a patient runner, find the hole, hit the gap, and play to your strengths. And that's what J.K. Dobbins consistently does. That's what he did in L.A. last year under Harbaugh, which he was so good at too, which is even more surprising. They let him go and brought in Najee Harris. And then you have him and pair that with R.J. Harvey. The team, that's what I saw from this game. This team has an identity now. That was the most important thing. Is like this team has an identity of running the football, being smart defensively, not letting the big plays happen, keeping your defense rested, and not turning the football over. And that's exactly what I need to see for this team to beat the Eagles, beat the Bills, beat the Chiefs, beat the Chargers, and try to consistently be a contender in the AFC.
Let's quickly get into the quarter season check-in because I'm trying to make sure that we stay on a time schedule. I think that there's questions that can be asked, but there's good things that can be seen too. It's not all bad. It's not all positive. It's somewhere in the middle. So I hate the fact that there's so much overreaction. Everything can be true all at the same time. There can be good things. There can be bad things. I'll start off with another one of my bad things. I called the Commanders game totally wrong. That was a big bounce back for Michael Penix.
1 week after going goose egg against Carolina, that's a tough task. You got to think trend wise. That's crazy that he doesn't put up a point against Carolina.
They weren't, and the defense was the response too. Their defense did not let the Commanders run the ball the way that they did to take out the Raiders. They're desperately trying to make sure that Jaden Daniels gets back and gets into this lineup. Eagles take care of business against the Bucs. I think that Baker's going to finally have to start playing in the first 3 quarters of the game because I love the fourth quarter heroics, but it's a little bit reminiscent of the Tebow era. Like the first 3 quarters for the Buccaneers are always bad. And the Eagles defense and special teams, that was the other one. I had the Steelers defense and special teams, and they had at one point 17 points. I think they ended with like 9. You ended up getting like 20 points because the Eagles had like 6 block kicks in a row between the last 2 weeks.
I heard the statistic going to the game on Monday. There was 13 block kicks / punts through 4 weeks of the season. There was 30 all of last season. Like that's crazy. That's actually crazy. And I heard a decent maybe a little bit weird argument against that. It's like more teams are focused on now the kickoff because obviously the kickoff rules have been incredible. I think now we see more returns. I think we see a lot more balls in play. More teams are more creative with how they kick it, how they set things up. That they're forgetting about that you have to have guys that block on punt return or punt and field goal.
Yeah, we're about to see a lot of special teams coordinators on the streets looking for work because you got to be able to protect a punter. You have to be able to get that thing off. And it's not the long snapper or the punter's fault because the operation times haven't changed in 35 years.
The timing doesn't change. It's whether or not a guy can hold for that long and be able to not let their guy go past him.
Moving down the schedule, I had a big win. Jacksonville did take care of business against San Francisco, even though it was dicey. And we have a new rivalry. Did you see that? Liam Cohen and Robert Saleh almost got into a fist fight on the field at the end of the game. Even though I will say Liam Cohen did a good job of having his arm around a guy, and he never did any. Like the guy wasn't even moving with him, but he like made sure the arm stayed behind his back. He's like, "What? Keep my name out your mouth." Okay.
Robert Saleh has continued to prove to me why he is one of the thickest, tough guys in the NFL. At the Jets, he was the all gas, no brakes guy, a guy that just tries to fight guys behind people's backs and do the little dirty things correctly. Yeah, and frankly, San Francisco is in a load of trouble. And Jacksonville, that's a good win for Jacksonville. Like I said, this AFC, is it South? Yeah, South.
Especially because the Colts lost too.
Yeah. AFC South is very, very good outside of Tennessee, obviously. But Houston, Jacksonville, and Texans, that's going to be a great race going down the end of the season.
I think that Jacksonville just tied Indianapolis too. They're both 3-1 at the top of the South, and they haven't played each other yet, so there is no tiebreaker.
And the Texans got one back with a 1-3-2, which they desperately needed to.
It was funny when I was working with that logo you sent me, the old Houston logo. They were like, "Is this a Roughnecks?" I was like, "No, we're not talking about the XFL. This is the NFL. This is not the Houston Roughnecks."
They don't have a throwback uniform or logo. Fun fact: they are the only team in NFL history that hasn't changed their logo.
I mean,
they're
our age.
They're new. Yeah, they're new. That's why. So the logo I used was their Color Rush uniform.
Right.
So that's why. So
it was just a funny little anecdote there. The Chiefs get back in the win column and maybe prove that the Ravens aren't what we thought they were. Thank you, Chiefs defense, because I was about to play against Lamar Jackson in fantasy football this week. Now that's changed. He's out. Not rooting for an injury, but that is a little bit of a load off my plate. My projections are a little bit better. But the Chiefs, are they back in what? Are they in predator mode?
That was a big win. I mean, a couple of things I think can be true. One, the Chiefs are getting the confidence back. I think after two tough games to start the season, they're getting their confidence back. And secondly, this Ravens defense is not as good as we thought it'd be. This Ravens defense has a lot of holes in it. Humphrey is going on Twitter or on Insta or on Twitch Live after the game talking about how bad he was. You have Kyle Hamilton, who is basically a zero, not doing a whole lot out there for the team. This defense for the Baltimore Ravens, that's usually a backbone for them, is struggling mightily. Like you saw what they did against Buffalo when Buffalo had that great comeback. They seem to be not hitting their stride at the right time, and I think the Chiefs getting their mojo back is huge for them. I still think their defense is. Frankly, if Lamar played the whole game, I think it would have been a much closer game, and the Ravens could have put up more points. But I think that the Chiefs' offense, getting Kelsey in the mix, getting Xavier Worthy some touches as well, was huge. They're going to get Rashee Rice back. Is it this week or is it 4 or 6 games? I can't remember.
I think it's 6.
It's 6. So a couple more games, and then they'll have him back. They are getting their momentum back on offense, and as weird as to say this, is like they need Kelsey to be productive, because like you said, when you saw in the Super Bowl last year, when he was a non-factor, the Chiefs weren't good, right? When you have to worry about 87 on the field, it is a nightmare for defenses consistently, and the Chiefs really did that well using Kelsey against Baltimore, and they could when the Ravens defense was struggling so much.
Final thing before we show the last punishment, because I did make a bet with a couple of my students, so we'll be able to go through that. You guys will see me do my push-ups for losing the Monday Night Football. We had a tie on Sunday Night Football, the dreaded -1. The Cowboys and Packers tie themselves at 40. First of all, I did not expect 80 points to be scored in this game. I thought that the Packers would be able to handle business, but this is now back-to-back weeks where they have a lead against an inferior team. They let the inferior team hang around. The inferior team eventually gets close enough that they either win or force overtime, and then from there, Jerry Jones. You can't tell me that Jerry Jones didn't have a phone down to the sidelines during overtime. It's like, hey, we got it this far. Okay, Micah isn't going to beat us in overtime because we tried to be aggressive and go for it. We're going to end this thing in a tie if all else fails. All right, a tie ball game is a win in our book.
Well, Micah Parsons saved the game for the Packers, and on that Dak Prescott scramble that he was able to tackle him on the 2-yard line to hold them to 3 points in that overtime period. I despise ties. I despise that I have to put a dash next to our records. I despise them more than anything. I don't understand why the NFL has just not adopted to college football. I don't know why they have thought so much into being like, you know what, ties are good for the game. This is basically, let's at this point, might as well just end the game after 48 minutes or 60 minutes, however long for 4 quarters. I think it's 15 minutes. Yeah, 60 minutes. End the game after 4 quarters. Just leave it a tie. Because, like, watch that overtime and tell me both those teams were trying to win outside that first drive for the Cowboys. They were trying to push. They were trying to get out. Let's get out of here with a tie, I guess. It's 10 minutes. A 5-minute drive in football is very common. It's very, very common. Very rarely do you hit a drive that is not a 3-and-out. That's less than 5 minutes drive. Like that's it. The rules are just so horrifying. Like college football does it so perfectly, and you don't even have to adopt the entire rules. Give the ball at the 40-yard line. because obviously, look, you get within the 40, the 30, you think that they're going to score consistently. Back the ball up, put it to the 40-yard line, and just have that happen so we don't have a tie. It's the dumbest. Like I said, it's crazy that the NFL has the worst overtime rules out of every league. Basketball, 1 5-minute period. Hockey, 3-on-3 until someone scores, and then you go to shootout. Playoffs, 5-on-5. Keep going. Right? Baseball, extra innings. Extra innings. After 2 innings, you have to put a guy on second base.
Yeah,
to at
California
least,
rules.
California rules to make sure that the game ends at a certain time. The games would be so much more exciting in overtime. But it's like, it's weird saying this, but like whenever a football game goes to overtime on TV, I just kind of dread it. Yeah. I don't know why. I kind of dread watching it.
Unless it's a playoff game for sure.
Yeah, unless it's a playoff game. I kind of dread watching it because it's like, all right, it's like playing chess, but both of you are trying for a draw. It's like no one's attacking, no one's doing any big plays, no one's trying to go for touchdowns. They're just trying to get out of this and win and slide by, as opposed to college football where you're like, they're going for it. There's no hold back. The offense is attacking.
And if you go long enough, you have to go for 2, and it's just 2-point conversions back and back and back and back.
It's just so annoying.
The Lions would always push for overtime if that were the case.
God, the Lions may be the biggest spokesperson for college football overtime rules in the league.
All right, last thing we'll end before we get into our pick'em. Here is my punishment with my students for losing. I'm in a. By the way, Niko had to ask too. It's a Gary Kubiak jersey.
I don't understand why someone would, unless I know Gary Kubiak personally. I would never buy a brand new, because that looked like the Nike.
It was the nicest jersey that I've had on in a while.
It was the Nike ones that released last year.
Yeah.
So they had to customize, get a Gary Kubiak back jersey. I
have a little bit more of the backstory. I'll let the video play out and I'll tell the backstory, because I asked the same question. I was like, you realize Gary Kubiak stopped playing before I was even alive, right? He was the coach by the time I was born, and that would be the same thing for you. But here's my punishment: 25 push-ups for the 25 points that the Broncos lost by, or won by, excuse me.
2, 3, 4, 5. Keep going. Sorry. Oh yeah. Start. Wait, what's this? What? Because I want to bet with him. What is he going to?
Everybody can get a little bit of a glimpse of what it's like to be in a 7th grade classroom. They never stop talking. It's always something going on. The backstory is their best friends they ordered a customized Kubiak jersey, and the company that sent him it mixed up and sent him 2. The kid's dad had 2 Cortland Sutton jerseys, so he's like, hey, Kubiak's kind of cool. It's kind of out there. I will trade you one of my extra Sutton jerseys for one of your extra Gary Kubiak jerseys. So there was a swap. So now there are 2 people that walk around with a Gary Kubiak jersey and a Cortland Sutton jersey in their repertoire. He
wasn't even a starter here. He was a backup now.
Career backup.
It's like one thing to have like a Jake Plummer jersey that like he started a couple years here, or like a Tim Tebow jersey that the dude won a playoff game here. It's another thing to have a who's a Jake Browning jersey.
Yeah,
like that's like the only people that should have a Jake Browning jersey is his wife and family. The only people that should have a Gary Kubiak jersey. It's like, and maybe it's kind of cool because he was a coach for a Super Bowl team here. But like that's like buying the manager's jersey in baseball, right? Like why am I gonna do that?
No, it was great, because then he would see me throughout the day. He's like, Broncos jersey looks good on you. It's like, dude, I grew up in Colorado, so it's not like I haven't worn a Broncos jersey before. It's not like you've
worn it, not as much as a Bengals jersey, but you've worn it more than
I pay attention.
Team.
I
Broncos, love the times you've worn jerseys. I would take a guess that rankings of how much time you've worn it would be Avs 1, Bengals 2, Broncos 3, with how much time you've spent in those jerseys.
Yeah, no, and I love football, and I love watching it, and I listen to sports radio because we do the podcast and all that kind of stuff. So, yes, the Broncos are not my least favorite team. It's not like I absolutely hate the Broncos when I live in Colorado. I just cheer for another team when they come here every other year. And I've gotten my comeuppance, by the way. I've paid my penance. Niko, I've now seen 13 Broncos-Bengals games here in Denver. 1 victory. 1.
That was Drew Lock giving you the game. So
I know
here,
we're
take it.
standing
Take
next to you, and I couldn't
Take
even
it.
celebrate because I was
Take
like,
it.
"Oh,
Just take it. Here. Here's the ball. Go. Run like the wind.
put on for my city." Would it have been poor taste to play Young Jeezy all the way back to the car after that one?
One of the intros too. The team too. They played at one of the first songs they played for the defense, and I'm like, can we not do something different?
We
By
should
the way,
change.
which I think this is a fun stat that I saw today. The Broncos won their last 7 home games. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing seeing that Mile High Magic back home and seeing that it's a tough place to come back into and play. So that's a great kudos to the team and fans.
People say that September, October are actually harder to play, and besides Miami in December, because you go from the cold to the hot and you're not used to it. But September and October in Colorado, and as people who have played football at those times, even going to Castle Rock, which is only 1,000 feet difference elevation, is a difference when you're playing at the preseason tournaments in September. It's you get out of breath, and it definitely affected the want to of most of the Bengals players. I don't want to call anybody out for poor effort, but like you could see it on the TV, you could see it standing on the game. Like people were just calling themselves out. I'm gonna go get on the oxygen tank a little bit early, get my backup in here. He can use some extra reps. Speaking of extra reps, I have an extra slot on my record. It was a bad weekend for me. I had a couple losses.
Actually, it wasn't bad. You went 2-1-1.
The
like
push,
the over, you hit the over. The over, you actually hit the over at 42.5. The Patriots basically did that to themselves.
Yeah,
that was
true. I was thinking I was just in a bad way because I was getting my ass kicked by you so bad at fantasy football. Sunday was not fun for me, so I wasn't necessarily paying all that close of attention. But Niko still on an immaculate season, 15-1 is incredible. We'll see how things go.
I think it hurts me the most because that one killed me in my Survivor League. That's the like I like that I'm 15-1, but it hurts me even just.
It's damn impressive. It's so impressive. Niko, people think we don't know ball. I took 15 pages of notes watching that Bronco game last night. You texted me it. We've spent enough time around this game of football to be able to pick up a thing or two that's a little bit more than just somebody sitting there watching the game at the bar. And as we say that, like minds think alike. So I'll go through our like game first, and then I'll let you run down the rest of your list that's different. I did not go with any overs or unders because it's been scaring me a little bit too much. But we have the Lions over the Bengals, and I think that we have it's very easy to tell why if you've listened to this podcast up until this point.
Pray for Jake Browning.
Honestly, let's pray that somebody else plays quarterback for the Bengals because we might as well see what anybody else has.
You know who the backup is?
Mike White.
No. Brett Rippon. He was the backup. I saw 11 Rippon out there. I was like, wait a second. That's Brett Rippon. And I was like, oh, that's fun.
At this point, with the way that I know this game is probably going to go, because it's a great weekend to have Jahmyr Gibbs on your fantasy roster. So if you're like me and have Jahmyr Gibbs as your first round pick.
J.K. Dobbins rushed for 100 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs may get 350.
And how many yards is he going to get catching balls out of the backfield? No pause on that. Like it's going to be all over from the very beginning of this thing. I love the logo. So
you need to trade for Jameis Winston so bad. Like
I'll take Jameis. I'll take Shador.
I don't think Shador would come there. I think Jameis is like the best option. If Zach Taylor wants to save his job, he is begging and pleading on his knees.
Then I don't want it. I don't want it, Niko. I'm at the point where
if it's going to, I'm just saying that's what Zach Taylor should be doing.
And if you're a true Bengals fan, you should be at this point too, because we know the limits of this guy. It is whatever number 9 is capable of doing. We know what the limit is.
The team is also 2-0 with Zach Taylor this year. And I told you, did I tell you last week or 2 weeks ago? Joe Burrow getting injured saves Zach Taylor's job.
If
you
have any hatred towards the players with how they played, you will get rid of that coaching staff, because that is the reason why you have the blow-ups on the sidelines from Chase. You can't get the ball to T. Higgins. This team has now resided itself to the fact that they're going to try and keep everything close and just hopefully have a chance to score at the end and maybe win a game. I've played on teams in college at that point, and you know what? None of those coaching staffs made it past that season. And I know it's different in the NFL, and I know that this organization runs itself differently. If they have any semblance of self-respect, that franchise will make a coaching change, but we all know that it's not going to happen, so it's just me shouting at Eric.
It's 1 year too late, because look at the top candidates. Last year, look at the top candidates this year. Ben Johnson, if he had this team, could you imagine what would have happened?
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
the
right
Bears
now
are
it's
playing good football. The Bears are
right
playing good football, and with
right
that
now
defense.
I think the Bengals are looking at Signetti, like how committed are you to college football? Probably some coordinators that we don't know the
I mean,
names
look,
of yet.
you want to know probably the top names are Brian Flores, Vance Joseph.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could deal with Vance as a head coach for the second time.
Yeah, I would lean Brian Flores would probably be. I would say Flores is probably the number one guy.
But he's also gonna put a hit out on Joe Burrow and probably break into his house himself because we all know how he feels about his starting quarterbacks as a head coach. Yeah, no, it's just bad. It's just bad. Go through the rest of your list and then I'll hit my games because we are all different from here on out.
I took Giants over the Saints. This is not necessarily picking on the Giants. The Saints still are horrible. I mean, look, they at least made it a game for half of the game against Buffalo in Buffalo, so good for Spencer Rattler there.
0-10 in his career, by the way.
I am drinking the Dart Scatterboo Kool-Aid. I understand Neighbors is injured. I think Dart should win this football game. I think I picked him up on as a backup quarterback in one of my leagues because
I was going to say he's one of my starters now.
As he should be.
He's solidified himself as one of my starters, even though he's listed as questionable. But that would also mean, depending on how things shake out, I might have weeks where I'm starting J.J. McCarthy and Jackson Dart. Might not be the best.
I mean, like I said, I think Jackson Dart, he played with a lot of moxie. He's got to learn how to slide. I love what they're using out of Scatterboo. Oh my gosh, watching that man run the football.
That dude needs to. Needs to not lead with his forehead because he's gonna end up with.
If there's anyone in football that needs to wear a guardian cap, it's Cam Scatterboo. Yeah. He needs it. Like we usually flame them for wearing them in a game. Scatterboo should be the one doing it. That's the only one that should be able to do it.
Him and the Georgia receiver that went over the top with the Chris Benoit headbutt on that's 4th and goal.
Both of them. Third one, I might pick Buffalo every single week. Buffalo over New England until Buffalo wears me dry here. New England got a big win last week. New England, like Diggs has done much better. I think Drake May is getting more comfortable. I just am not a believer in what Drake May's doing yet, and I still think that offensively they're not opening the running game up. They barely used Travion Henderson. It's been Ramondre Stevenson for the most part for that team. So I think Buffalo will win that game. Like I said, I might put Buffalo on here every single week until it loses. Then I took Arizona over Tennessee. Arizona, that Thursday night game showed me a lot. I'll be honest with you. The couple drops, Marvin Harrison was a little bit head scratcher. But at the end of the game there, Kyler led some drives down the field that were really impressive. Marvin Harrison was getting into the mix. Obviously, having Trey McBride, who was a top tight end in football, in my opinion, helps a lot. This defense, they still need to find a defensive identity. But they shut down Seattle for the most part in that second half. So I just think that Arizona is a better spot. Tennessee, Brian Callahan may be dumber than Zach Taylor. Then they came from the same coaching tree.
Callahan was Taylor's OC for a long time.
Exactly. So he may be just as dumb because Callahan, I don't know what he's doing in Tennessee.
He's about as bad as Brian Kelly with arguing with reporters instead of coaching his team.
It's so bad. It's so bad. So I'll take Arizona, Buffalo, New York, and or the Giants, not New York. Can't say New York because I will not take the Jets. I've taken that ownership since the show started. I don't think I've ever taken the Jets in a pick 'em. And then the Detroit Lions.
I think that you have some good things. I just hope that Drake May can continue to throw it to Hunter Henry and Stephon Diggs because that helps out my fantasy team. But I've seen him throw 4 interceptions and still let those guys score 30 points. So I'm with it on that. My games, I have Cleveland beating Minnesota. This is being played in London, so that's part of my reasoning. Minnesota did not.
Do you know who the starting quarterback is?
I know it's Dylan Gabriel now. That's also another reason.
Rookie push.
Rookie push. It is also a little bit worrisome because now you have a rookie quarterback against Brian Flores, and he's also left-handed, and he's also a little bit shorter. Oh, and by the way, he's also from Hawaii. So all of those things that I was saying about him hating Joe Burrow, the quarterback that he almost ran out of Miami was all of those things as well. A little bit shorter, left-handed, from Hawaii. I'm still going to go. I think that the Browns defense is good enough to dominate Carson
Browns are
Wentz
really good.
and this Vikings offense. Isaiah Rodgers still owns me. I have to say that legally every time that I talk about the Vikings. But I do think that this one, if I'm going to take a wild pick and get myself back into this thing, if Niko's going to keep going 15-1, that one would be an awesome one to hit on. I'm helping you out a little bit because the Raiders were close against the Bears, but I think that this is a Colts get right game because they gave that game away. They could have beaten the Rams and been continuing to be undefeated. They should have been.
That was a very fun game too. I would say that
Yep.
was a very fun game to watch too. Both those teams are very good.
No, it could have been either way, but the Colts had every opportunity to win that game, and they finally feel what that tastes like. They suffered their first loss. I think that they bounce back. That defense might cause Geno Smith to get benched because Geno has not been good. He's throwing way too many interceptions.
Is O'Connell still there?
I have honestly zero idea.
Yeah.
Zach Mettenberger, Christian Hackenberg. Name another Penn State quarterback that Pete Carroll might have kept around in his reserves. My last game, I think that the Chargers get a bounce back against the Commanders. I think that Jaden Daniels is expected to be back. Whether or not he's playing, this team showed a lot of holes. So until they can show me that those holes are filled, that's what the Chargers will take advantage of. They will run the football. Justin Herbert is playing. It's just different. I have seen him now play against the Chiefs in the Sao Paulo game, against the Broncos. There were some heroic plays. They were mentioning it on the local stations here. It was like he was in the Wanted movie where they were able to bend the bullets. He literally threw a touchdown pass to Keenan Allen around Nick Bonito's head that went straight behind Nick Bonito instead of going, and there was no curve on the thing. Justin Herbert, I think I have enough faith in him to stake my claim. I think that they get a win over the Commanders. I was high on the Commanders last week. I'm not as high on them as I was this week. So outside of the Lions over the Bengals, I have the Browns beating the Vikings, Colts beating the Raiders, and the Chargers taking out
the only one
Washington
that I
Commanders.
feel on for you is the Browns and Vikings because I feel like the Vikings could make Dylan Gabriel's life a living.
All those things I said about the comparisons to Tua really sunk home, didn't they? I honestly was talking myself out of my pick as I was going through it. I was like, fuck, I texted that the wrong way.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's going to be like I said, I like all those picks. I was considering half of those. I don't know. I just think the Commanders are a better football team than, like I said, I like to bet against bad teams too. Yeah. That's my thing. Not only good for good teams, but against bad teams.
And by the way, the last time you said that the Browns wouldn't win, they knocked you out of your survivor pool.
It is true. This is true. This is very true.
Not to pour salt on the wound.
They are the reason why I lost.
I felt like we spent 45 minutes talking about the salt in my wound with the Bengals and Broncos game. So I deserve that one there. Let's talk about the bench warmers of the week. Nobody could possibly be so narcissistic to make themselves bench warmer of the week, could they? No, it's me. That's myself. I had to. I told my family. I paid my penance. Lannister always pays his debts. That was a picture I sent to Niko too. It's in my Kubiak jersey. I was bench warmer of the week because I couldn't say anything back to a 12-year-old walking into the classroom like, "Oh, what about your Broncos?" Yeah. What about them? What do you want to talk about? How much time do you have?
I know you had a bad weekend. I swear Keegan Bradley probably had the worst weekend of all. I don't think it could get much worse than the performance the United States had against Europe in the Ryder Cup.
From the opening round, too.
For those that were watching college football all Saturday, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I talked about those games. I didn't watch a second of those. I was watching the Ryder Cup. So that's why I didn't say a whole lot on that. So sorry, sue me. I was watching the Ryder Cup. What a horrible performance on Friday and Saturday. Like Friday and Saturday, I don't know. Like the statistics were showing that, and for those that don't know why I put Keegan Bradley here, it's not because he played bad, because he was the captain of the team and put the team out there the way he did. The pairings he threw out there on Friday, and then the pairings he threw out there Saturday, we were given an 8 handicap. Like we had to overcome 8 points on Sunday, and we almost did it. We almost did it. Like legit, if we would have won 1 or 2 matches on Friday or Saturday, maybe even 3, we win that by a landslide because of how well our boys played in the singles matches on Sunday. I was sitting there, I was like, damn, this hurts so much. And then Sunday came around, and I had the multi-screen on YouTube TV, shout out, no free shout-outs, where I had football, WNBA semifinals, and golf on all 4 times. And while I was watching all 3 channels, I was watching the scoreboard. I was like, we're kind of lighting up the scoreboard red here. And for those that don't know what that means, it basically means you're winning the matches. And I was sitting there like, we're lighting the scoreboard red here a little bit. This is actually looking pretty good. There's a chance. And then we get to a point where we only lose 14.5 to 13.5. Actually, no, I take it back. Sorry, I take it back. It was 15 to 13 was the final score because the last match was tied. So it was 15 to 13 final score, which for those that weren't counting, you win one full match and a half a match, you would have won that. You only need 14 points to retain the cup. Europe won it 2 years ago in I think it was Ireland. I can't remember where it was.
Italy.
You're right. It was Italy. And then this year, it was in Bethpage back in New York.
It's the first time that the visiting continent has won since the 90s.
I think it would happen in the 20s. I think it's been 5 straight. I don't think it was 90s. I think either Europe won here. I think Europe might have won here like 5 or 6 years ago.
And that's the other thing that I hear too is like it's like the Olympics. European teams play together a little bit more. They like the match play. Yeah. They like the 2-on-2 style. And the Americans are all
love the singles. Love going.
It's all our team. And it's in all-star situations. The Americans normally don't do very well because the teams that play better together know the matchups, know who to put together. Like, who did Colin Morikawa play with on Thursday?
Oh, it was Harris English. Or
that was probably the worst decision that Bradley made of the weekend, and it was the start of the weekend.
Someone on Golf Digest ranked all 100
because he was playing against Rory, right?
Yeah. It was ranked all 150 possible pairings for the United States on 4-ball and scramble, or alternate shot, 4-ball and alternate shot, and that was the second to worst one, and the worst one was paired up on Saturday. Like nice. I don't like. Obviously, the statistics is one thing, but Europe does it so well. They return every single one of their guys except one, and they returned his twin back. Like Europe had 14 out of 50, or they had one less guy that wasn't at the last Ryder Cup than they did this year, and the one guy they brought in was the guy's twin brother who played. Like Hogard's brother. I think it was Nikolai Hogard, funny enough, my name, and the other one was Sam Hogard or something like that. His twin was playing. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible performance. Sky Scheffler is horrible in match play, great in single, horrible in match play when it comes to team ball. Like I said, the U.S., when it comes to playing the course, is very good. When it comes to playing against someone, that's where we struggle. And obviously the other big story out of this weekend was the slander and everything being thrown at Rory and the countless jabs back and forth. This golf is like one of the most respectful sports that are out there. Like, as much as I wanted the U.S. to win, it was kind of I didn't hate it that Rory said, "Fuck you, shut the fuck up," and then shot a tee shot or a chip shot in the rough within 2 feet of the hole. It was like, you like that? Like, I was like, damn, that's
if it happens once every now and then, it's kind of cool. That's the thing. That's why Live isn't going to be sustainable, because nobody wants a full weekend of all of the crazy shit. I want the waste management. I want this Ryder Cup. But like the Masters doesn't have the shit talking back and forth. But I want the drunk assholes on the weekend in the spring. I want this every 2 years where the two continents fight against each other and we have the shit talking and it's the home course advantage and all that kind of stuff.
I will say I like that too. It was too much. The calling Rory the F word, calling or slandering his family, going after these guys.
Oh, that's way too much. Yes,
that's way too much. I think there were way too many lines crossed. But for every lines crossed, there was like, damn, that was a great shot. Good job, Rory. Like I can boo you. It's like when we faced Kobe back in the day for the Nuggets. It's like, damn, I hate you, but you're playing so well. It's like, damn,
this is where they went from. This is where that conversation goes from. This is why they're pro athletes, because Rory can tell you to shut the fuck up as he puts it 2 feet away from the hole.
And that's one thing about golf that's so different than any other sport. And I think the only sport you can compare this to is tennis. Is like, it's such a gentleman's sport that like it puts a stain on the event. It puts a stain on the course. It puts a stain on us American fans too, because we just seems like fucking pricks that are just like narcissistic assholes. And like, we're not all like that. And that's why it's annoying, because like I said, golf is one of those sports that every now and then it's fun to have those excitement. And that's why I like the Waste Management Open so much, because everyone's cheering for everybody. It's like, we don't have allegiances. We're like, you hit the ball good and the ball goes in the hole, we're cheering for you. It doesn't matter. It does not matter.
Everybody's too drunk to know who you are. They're just here cheering for the tee shot.
It's no slander back and forth. It's just hype and everyone going crazy for each other. And that's why I love the Waste Management Open so much. And I just wish that, like I said, I hope in 4 years' time, wherever they play the Ryder Cup here again in the U.S., that it's showed a little bit better off.
That was a good explanation. We definitely needed to talk about the Ryder Cup because that was a huge weekend storyline. Now into the best of the week. It's both guys from Niko's fantasy team. That was my criteria. Who did I expect the least from and get the most out of? That would be Mr. Ashton Genty. I know.
I don't know if I would have expected the least out of. I think I would have expected less out of George Pickens than Genty.
Well, here's the thing. I was expecting Pickens. Either
Pickens,
way.
Hawkinson,
Either way.
of guys, but
My
yeah,
running back is where I'm fairly strong in my roster, so I was at least expecting to outscore one of your running backs, and I don't think I came. You had James Cook and Ashton Genty this weekend, which was a really good tandem.
And Genty put up 38.
Yeah. It was a 60-point day from your two running backs. So Ashton Genty, it was the first time that we saw him look as dominant as he had been in college at the NFL level. He went back to his college stance. But the Raiders around him need a lot of help.
The Raiders behind him. He had that 160-yard touchdown run that literally amounted to 12 points in one play. I sat there watching it on multicast or whatever and saw it on live go up from he went from 8 points to 14 he went from 8 points to 20 points in a matter of one play. I was like, damn, what happened? And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, I can talk to Jimmy about this. And I talked to Jimmy about it.
And I was already taking a nap at that point because about an hour earlier, I had 3 players within the red zone, and I got 0 points out of those 3 trips to the red zone in 4 different games. I was watching them again in the multi-screen because we've shouted them out enough this week's episode, but I was watching the multi-screen, and I was like, I patted Carly. I was like, I have 3 players ready to score. And I think my kicker didn't get a chance to kick the field goal. I had the Vikings flame out in the red zone, and I had somebody else get close but not get any points. I was like, son of a bitch. This is not going well.
Like I said, your team did really good this weekend. I just went nuclear. That was the thing. And frankly, and you want to know why? It's because I may have the number 1 receiver in football on my team. Puka Nacua, he's the number 1 fantasy receiver in football. That's not even a question, because he is consistently when he's opposite of Devontae Adams has just been the guy that everyone forgets about for whatever reason. Then you realize, oh yeah, this guy caught for 1,500 yards a couple of years ago when he was healthy. Oh yeah, he was that good his rookie year, and he 13 receptions, 178 yards and a touchdown. That I put those numbers down, being like, you know what, that actually wasn't a crazy great game. Then I watched the tape, being like, oh, Stafford just throws it to him every single time that he's halfway open. And it's why the Rams offense is humming as much as it is, because Kyren Williams, Puka, and Devontae Adams are making Matt Stafford young again. Basically, he's making him young again. And like I said, Puka won me a fantasy football championship 2 years ago, and if he wins me another one, there's a very good chance I buy a Puka jersey, is all I'll say. And that's because he's won me 2 championships. That's all. Look, if he does it twice, once I was considering it. He does it twice, I guarantee you I will do it.
He's already the namesake of your fantasy team, so in that league specifically, so it makes sense. You got a play of the week. I don't really have much. I was down about football for a majority of the weekend.
The only play of the week I had was the Nick Bonito sack, where basically he was 3-4 yards in the backfield before Orlando Brown was in his.
Was that the one where him and Cooper crunched Browning's head between the two of them? Yeah,
the two of them. Yes, that one where basically
it's the first time that's happened to a Bengals quarterback before. I was very well versed at seeing that.
The snap was still in the center's hand when he literally, or the center had his hand up his butt, basically, where the ball snapped at, and where it is before it gets the shotgun. The ball is still in his hand, and Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito were already 3 yards in the backfield. And I remember watching that live, being like, were they offside? That was a little. The other thing, I was just like, oh wow, that was a little.
The other thing that I conveniently left out of our discussion last week, Nico, is that the Jaguars' defensive line, when they hurt Burrow, said that they knew every single call that the Bengals' offensive line was going to make, and they were also timing the clock behind them because we couldn't get the ball snapped off before a second. I also so my play of the week will be me going back and watching the actual TV copy, because in the stadium I was pissed that we didn't get the encroachment penalty on the 4th and 2 that we went out there. It was the penalty not on the tackle. It was on the center, because the center snapped his head up too fast before he snapped the ball. I didn't hear it in all the commotion of who they called the penalty on in the stadium. It was not the tackle. It was actually, Ellis did jump off sides, but he jumped on the center's head movement instead of the ball movement. So it was a legitimate penalty. So I wanted to make sure I put that out there. I'm a man of my word. I want to say, I take beatings.
That's the first time I've heard of that. It's not been put anywhere about that.
It was Ted Karras who got called on the false start penalty that stuff that 4th and 2. I want to say this out front. I feel like I take beatings pretty well. I didn't take a ton of them in youth football. I got used to it a little bit more in college. But I want to win everything. I'm competitive. But if you beat the shit out of me like that, I don't have any excuse that I'm going to make.
I felt bad about fantasy football. Like I texted you, I was like, "You had a great run." Like I wasn't being sarcastic. I texted you, it was a hell of a run. I was like, "You were playing great." First, and then my team started playing in the second slate of games, and I was like, "Oh, here we go." And then I did what my team did.
It got ugly in a hurry. Speaking of ugly in a hurry, hopefully things stay good for people moving forward. We end up starting October. Like I said, we're leaving September in the past. We can wake up the lead singer of Green Day. September is over. We're into October. Thank you guys very much for subscribing, following. A lot of people have been checking out the new content, so we appreciate that. Subscribe. Rise of the Roadrunners coming out Friday. Episode drops Thursday with clips and videos and all that kind of stuff. So subscribe, follow.
The last two things I'll throw in real quick because like I said, in the midst of football, in the midst of basketball starting, hockey preseason, all of this, I want to give a shout out to two sports that are killing it right now. The WNBA Finals, I watched the Fever game. Like I said, I watched the Fever Aces game. That game went to overtime in Game 5, which is the do-or-die game last night. That was so much fun to watch. The great game back and forth. The Aces and the Mercury are the WNBA Championship. Going to be a great series. I think it's going to be much watch. It's so much fun to watch between these two teams. Nafisa Collier basically called the commissioner of the WNBA out, saying you suck, and that would they need new commissioner. And frankly, I don't disagree with anything she said. She said, why is Paige, Caitlin, and Angel Reese not getting compensated for bringing as much viewership and jersey sales? And then the commissioner went out and said, well, Caitlin should be thankful that she makes as much money as she does outside of basketball because she wouldn't have the platform she has without the WNBA. That's a direct quote, she said. And I was like, that's one way to grow the game of women's basketball. So that was very, very frustrating. But I'm excited to watch the Mercury.
The league that loses hundreds of millions of dollars a year. The league that loses money and doesn't make it.
As much hate as we give Angel, she has done a great job of growing the game of women's basketball. Same with Paige Beckers, who was a rookie year, and same with Caitlin Clark, obviously, as well. And they just have nothing to show for it. And it's so annoying. It's so annoying because, like I said, I work in two leagues now that are both below the WNBA in terms of revenue and viewership and all that. But at the same time, we sit here and being like, damn, if we had the resources, we had that talent, or we had the hype of all this, we would not be faltering this away in the slice. So I'll say. And then the last thing I'll say, Chamba. We get the revenge this weekend. Makachev, we're coming for your head. Chamba, we're coming for his head. That's all I'll say. Polatan will put Ankalaev's head in the 4th row this weekend and give me Chamba over Ankalaev in UFC 320 this weekend.
If I end up, I think I'll have a little bit more free time because my game is a little bit earlier. It's not in the evening, so I'll check out the highlights. I'm not paying the money for the once it goes on Paramount, I'll be paying a little bit more attention, and I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people. Make sure that you're subscribed. Thank you guys for tuning in. Episode 250 of the Far End of the Bench podcast for myself, Jimmy Pilato, my co-host Niko Bryant. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week.
Peace.
If you don't stay down and you never quit, come on over here and sit on the far end of the bench.